we were turning over about 150,000, I think, when I joined, and we grew to about 400,000 by middle of 2015. We've always tried to minimise price increases to our clients by being more efficient. So that's always our first route, but there comes a point where, all my staff want pay rises, so you're naturally going to have to bridge that by increasing the fees to clients as well. So our kind of philosophy is keep the client happy, and that's sort of how we've grown. The unlimited model for us works normally, but in peak times like COVID, it did put a strain on us.
Hi everyone, you're listening to the Unrelenting Drive podcast, and before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to let you know I started this podcast because over the years I've had hundreds of the most inspiring conversations of my life with small business owners, and they really helped me grow and scale my own business and get my mindset right even when times were really tough. I wanted to capture those conversations and make them available to other small business owners who are following in my footsteps, and I've just got a small request. If you enjoy this episode, if you find it really inspiring, if you find it helps you in your own business, then please just like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The more subscribers we get, the more we can invest in making the podcast better. So enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, it's Nishi here, and you're watching the Unrelenting Drive podcast. And today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Greg Guilford from HR Solutions. Greg, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Amazing. And if you could just in a few sentences just explain to the audience what you actually do.
I'm the CEO of HR Solutions. We're a HR outsourcing company based in Kettering, pretty much helping small businesses who need HR support where they don't have an in-house resource. So it's all aspects of employing people through to recruitment, performance management, and the nitty-gritty, employee relations issues such as disciplinary and grievances.
Greg, that's absolutely amazing. So how many businesses would you say you support at the moment?
I think we've got about 500 clients across the UK we're supporting at the moment.
Wow, that's a lot of clients. And what kind of size are they?
So our niche spot is SMEs. That's where we focus our support. We do have clients who might have one employee up to a couple of thousand, but there's sort of obviously the service will slightly tailor to the larger companies, but they tend to be higher headcount. But there might be a cleaning company or manufacturing where the kind of you obviously need more people to do that. But most of the time it's in and around Northamptonshire. We're supporting local companies. Most of them probably in between 20 and 50 employees is kind of where most of our clients sit.
Okay, absolutely amazing. And at the moment, how big's your team?
So across a couple of companies that we look after, but there's about 46 of us right now across the different aspects. So we do HR and health and safety. So we've got sort of two teams that work side by side.
That's absolutely amazing, because you mentioned earlier how you and your mother started from just being you two, so growing to 46 people's, like I said, it's a huge journey.
Yeah.
So before we get into that, how did you go from, like, you mentioned you went to university earlier actually, so how do you go from going to university to starting off working in your own business?
So I think like many people, when you sort of finish your university degree, you want to know what's next and try and start your career. So I kind of, my first degree, I went to finish that and went to London. Worked in some government organisations there. Was fortunate enough that I paid for my masters, so I carried on studying on my first job. From there, I kind of hit a ceiling that it was difficult to progress within government bodies. You're kind of waiting for the person above you to retire, typically in government organisations. So started looking around at different roles, and I found one was for BAE Systems at the time, but it was based out in Saudi Arabia. So I think I had about a week-long selection process before I finally got told I got the job, and then I moved out to Saudi Arabia. Started teaching Saudi nationals about English law and how to manage people, but also looking after the expats out there at the same time. I was there for about 3.5 years, and then sort of decided to come back to the UK, worked in the head office of BAE Systems for about 6 months or so before starting a job with HR Solutions, whereas essentially I was the second employee after my mother.
What made you want to go from all those large organisations to a smaller business?
She asked. So she just won a contract, it was a fairly large contract, supporting ITV, where we were, they 2P'd out part of their business that we then ended up being their HR resource for. So it was quite a big contract that she couldn't do on herself, by herself. And who else can you trust but family, right? So she asked me to come and join, and I did. So that was in January 2008. Amazing.
Okay. And I guess before we move on, like, what's it like living out in Saudi Arabia?
I was single at the time, so it was quite a different lifestyle for me. I think if you're there with a family, and it might be slightly different, but
is it a bit like Dubai?
No. Okay. Other than it's hot like Dubai,
yes.
But obviously Saudi Arabia is quite a strict Muslim country, so you know, no alcohol, and single males and single females are not really supposed to mix. So it's a bit of a different lifestyle. I lived in a compound, for example, that had armed guards on it. But because we worked on the sort of military base, it was a bit different to maybe Dubai, which is probably a bit more outgoing and more westernized than Saudi Arabia. Personally, I enjoyed it thoroughly while I was there. I'm a great believer that life's what you make of it. So, you know, I would go down to the local souks with my Saudi colleagues and smoke shisha and eat chicken shawarmas and stuff like that. Was, you know, other people don't like certain environments, and so they stay within the compound because that's where they felt safe and where they felt they belonged. But I believe you kind of got to make the most of life and see the world. So.
Yeah, I guess without all those other distractions, you probably got a lot of work done as well.
Yeah. I mean, most of them, the guys I worked with, are still friends with me on Facebook and LinkedIn and stuff like that. We still catch up every now and again. And that's the expats as well as the Saudis. And it's great to see how their careers have progressed along with mine since being there. So I was only 24 when I moved out there. So.
Okay, so how old were you when you joined HR Solutions?
So I was probably 28.
Okay, and was that in...
I turned 30 actually in the January. So
Yeah.
that timing might be slightly off. But yeah, I turned 30 in the January.
Okay, that's about the same time I started this business actually. I was like 29. What and how long ago was that?
2008.
2008, okay.
Yeah.
And how long had your mother been going with the business before?
So yeah, she started in 2001, pretty much sole trader. I'm sure you've been on the network scene. There's lots of people who are independent HR consultants out there. That's essentially what she did, albeit, you know, many years before other people were doing it. So up until I joined, she was doing it on her own for 8 years. But typically doing the same thing, just working with small businesses across Northamptonshire, basically.
That's really good. So, and you joined so when she was about 7 years in, and what was it like at the beginning? Was there a clear hierarchy, or were you like equal partners?
So when I joined, so long ago, I can't remember the actual details of it, but I was salaried, so that might dictate. But she gave me shares in the business to join, and as well. But ultimately, I came in to support that contract she won, and then help grow the business. So, with 2 people, I was quite busy with one client because it was a day a week on site, and it was more than paying for my salary, thankfully. So it gave me the luxury of sort of what do I do for the other 4 days. So that was where I kind of looked at redefining the website, the brand. When I first started, I was working in my old bedroom where I grew up in. So, from there we moved into professional offices. Focused on the marketing and our whole sort of brand proposition. But really, it's the service we provided was resonating with the prospects we were talking to. There was a great demand for it, and that's sort of how we grew that business. I think when I first started, that was the remit, was to look after that client, but I'm quite ambitious that I wanted to grow that business, and naturally you'll find ways to make things happen. So I don't think there was a ground plan of like, this is what I want you to do. I just sort of took the jump, started working, and then when you're in the business, you can see how you can improve it, and that's really what happened.
I guess I've kind of been through some of it myself, but I mean, for people watching this who might just be working by themselves, but they do want to grow and scale a business, like how do you take that first step? What was the first thing you do?
I think you just got to be brave sometimes, and I think we're fortunate that there's a lot of small businesses around you in the same position. So whilst I'm a HR professional by trade, I don't do that now, but there's lots of other people you can lean on for advice and guidance, and we would go networking and talk to people and take ideas from them in terms of what else we could be doing. But naturally, if you've got something great and you believe in your service, you're going to want to shout about it, and that's how I think a lot of small businesses grow, is because you've got a good product and people buy from people as well. So I think if you can get on with people broadly, you're going to be able to grow your business. I think you kind of want to have that professional mindset and know where you want to go. For us, we kind of kept investing in that in the business as well, in terms of that I joined in the January, there was 2 of us. By the end of the year, there was 5 of us. I knew that I couldn't do all the marketing myself. I knew I couldn't do all the accounts ourselves.
So who are the first 3 people you hired?
So we had my sister joined us in marketing, and I think we had 2 interns by the end of that year to help with sort of HR administration. So entry level roles, but kind of freed me up to not do it because it wasn't really worth the sort of time I was spending on it. And that's simple stuff like sending out contracts of employment or administrating some employee details on HR databases, that kind of stuff. So it was kind of the freeing up our time so that I could focus on the business rather than just in it. And I think you hear people say that a lot. You want to, as an owner manager, you want to focus on the business rather than be in it. But it is a fine balance, when you're first starting out, because unless you're fortunate, you can hire someone who does all that and focus on the business yourself. There will always be that balance where initially you need to do both.
I mean, a lot of business owners I talk to, solopreneurs, I guess, and they get to a point where they're financially comfortable, they're making some money after going through a period of not making enough. And it's very hard for them to give that up. If you went from the 2 of you to having another 3 people, did you have to make sacrifices, or was the business quite profitable at that point anyway?
We were. The business was profitable. We were busy. There wasn't. I mean, January 2008, sort of by the end of that year, we were going into recession. So you could argue it wasn't the best time to join. But we had a good offering that we made decisions based on the cash we had in the bank and our pipeline of business. We took on a 5-year lease in that property. Moving into recession, we kind of had to make it work. And I think some people will just rise to that challenge as well. When you're faced with adversity, you just keep going and overcome it. And others might shy away, and we could have easily gone, we're going to close the business down and restart when it gets better. But we're kind of fortunate a little bit in the industry we're in. When times are tough, businesses need us because they'll be looking at restructuring, making redundancies, that kind of stuff. So we kind of quite buoyant in times of recession, but also when times are good, people are recruiting as well. And so we're kind of, not say we're totally resilient, but we're kind of got a level of resilience in economic uncertainty.
Yeah, I can imagine actually. It's I think a lot of the HR people I know, they did really well over COVID as well. Yeah. And but then when is your business not doing well? What? So when things are bad, it's good. But is there times when people need HR people less?
It swings and roundabouts, obviously, but because of the size of our client portfolio, there will always be somebody that needs us. So with 500 clients, we're not going to service all of them at any one point in time. Yeah. So I think that's why it's good for us to have more clients. There's a balance that one client might not phone you that week, but you might have 2 others that do. So we kind of that helps balance our workloads. In relation to COVID, our model is more of an unlimited model. So actually, COVID, we were the busiest we've ever been, but we weren't making more money. Like some of our our colleagues in the HR world charged by the hour, so they would have been making more money. But for us, we were more about not shying away. My team around me just rose to the challenge, and they were already busy, but they were doing 10-hour, 12-hour days to help the clients because that's what they're focused on. We ended up giving them extra leave to kind of balance out the fact that they'd done the extra hours, but to make sure they didn't burn out themselves. But yeah, our kind of philosophy is keep the client happy, and that's sort of how we've grown. The unlimited model for us works normally, but in peak times like COVID, it did put a strain on us because everybody wanted something. But kind of, I've got such a good team around me that we developed a COVID hub on our website to make sure that actually some people might have just benefited from reading that rather than spending time with the consultant. So it helped us and the businesses that weren't even clients. To be honest, it wasn't sort of behind a gateway. Anybody could access that information. So we would direct some clients to that, but then some clients would need to have a bit more detail in terms of what do they do around furlough. But our team made a set of guidance that we could easily use for the team and then roll out to clients as well. So we reacted quickly to make sure that clients had what they needed, and essentially made sure that the team weren't overburdened with the requests as well. But yeah, there's always something to do in HR. It's just the nature of the beast. Good times or bad.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, it's. I mean, we were in a similar position over COVID. Actually, one of the really frustrating things for me, because COVID, just before COVID hit, so I guess the beginning of 2020, it was probably the first time in my business where I decided to get my act together with pricing. Mm-hmm. Because we got clients who had been with us 6 or 7 years, and we'd never changed their price. Yep. And then we got some newer ones who had been paying more than those older ones, and we finally said as a business we're just going to charge everyone the same amount on the same tariff, and we got a similar all-you-can-eat model in terms of advice and support on that. But then there are a few bits we do charge extra for if they're outside of that model, but. And then COVID was kind of announced, and literally like a week before we're about to send out the price increase emails, and to inform people that we were repricing. And then we said, okay, well, we can't do that now. This would be awful timing. So, but we'll just wait a few months, and then a few months turned into 18 months. But in all of that period of time, we were essentially doing furlough claims for free. Although one thing we did do quite well with in terms of furlough claims was we just said, we reminded people that we're not charging you extra for these, even though they're a lot more work, but could you leave us a review here? So we managed to build up a lot of that marketing credibility just through that. And there was a lot. Sometimes when a business owner's lost everything, it's not appropriate to go and ask them for more money. But I did hear of some accountants furloughing themselves and not helping their clients, and then I heard of others who were charging for all the furlough claims, all that kind of stuff, and I don't know if that's right or wrong. Obviously, if it worked for them, it worked for them.
We do some payroll for some clients as well, and we didn't charge any extra for any of that, whereas I know some others did. We were kind of in it together with our clients essentially, and I think as an accountant you could put goodwill on the balance sheet sometimes, but I think we banked a lot of goodwill in that period of time, because all the clients you couldn't have been more happy with the service we provided. We got testimonials around that as well, and many of them are still here now. We're probably going into another challenge. So we're seeing a lot of small businesses go into administration at the moment, but I think they're kind of getting ready for a recession. Weirdly more now than I think there was in COVID, to be honest, because I think the furlough helped a lot of people.
But also the bounce back loans and the government grants, whereas now there's almost no government support, and then a lot of businesses where before they financed at 7%, they're financing at 15%.
Yeah.
And it's all building up. I was talking to an insolvency practitioner a few weeks ago anyway, and he said like there was like 40,000 insolvencies like this year, and it was up. I can't remember the exact number, but it was up substantially from the year before.
Yeah, I think the same thing that, people have, they deferred VAT, they deferred PAYE, and took bounce back loans as well, and it was not free money. Everyone had to pay it back at some point, and if your business if you took that money and didn't use it to grow, you were probably just paying bills. So you're always going to have that challenge at some point. And I don't know whether it's sort of a build-up of that or other people are just sort of seeing a downturn in their business. I don't know the detail of it. You're probably closer to some of these SMEs than me in terms of finances.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there is some challenges ahead for SMEs.
Absolutely. So how do you go to having 500 clients? Like, where did they all come from? Like you mentioned earlier, there were some mergers and acquisitions.
So yeah, so I joined in 2008. We were turning over about 150,000, I think, when I joined, and we grew to about 400,000 by middle of 2015. Sort of our market, there's a lot of acquisitions from bigger players. So we were approached by numerous people over the years in terms of they wanted to buy us. We've had one such person approached us. It took us 2 years to get a deal over the line, to be honest, because we weren't quite ready. We grew in that period of time and they didn't. So when we kind of got back round the table, we came in as equal partners and created a new JV together.
Okay.
Sort of 50-50. And then we'll turn over about $1 million at that point in time. We're putting the two things together. They were backed partly by private equity. It's sort of relevant. They helped fund the first deal we did, but all the other ones were kind of self-funded. So since 2015, we continued to do organic growth, and that's good SEO, good marketing, client referrals, and then the companies we acquired obviously had a book of business that came with them. So yeah, we bought 5 companies over a 7-year period, which kind of added to all of that. Most of those were HR, other than the last one we bought was a health and safety company, and with that there was a lot of opportunity to cross-sell in terms of the services we provided. So their health and safety clients didn't have HR, and our HR ones didn't have health and safety. So I think in a 6-month period, we turned that £650,000 business to close to $1 million run rate.
Okay.
So
I mean, ultimately though, like if you're acquiring lots of really small HR firms, they're probably based on personal relationships, aren't they?
Yeah.
So how do you replicate that, or how do you replace that?
So most of the deals we did, the owner stayed for a 2-year period, and part of that remit is to help those clients embed with us. We're fortunate that I think whilst we might have different models underneath, HR people are broadly similar in that the style of how they talk to clients. So yes, there was some personal relationships, but I think my team are quite personable, and it was quite easy for us to sort of win those clients over in terms of, yes, that contact might be going, but look what service you're going to get from these guys. So I would say all of those deals have been successful in terms of handing over those clients. Yes, some of them will use it as an opportunity to look elsewhere, but broadly they stayed because we're good value and the service we provide.
And what about in terms of like aligning your pricing? Because I can imagine a lot of the one-man, woman bands would be much cheaper than what you charge potentially.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, I think. So, we're not the cheapest, but we're not the most expensive in terms of what we do, particularly when you factor in the kind of model we have, which is that all-you-can-eat style, unlimited retainer. So some of them, we didn't never rush in and go, right, you're on a low rate, we're putting your price up to existing clients. We focused on winning them over first, and making that model work. Most of the time they were hourly based, so you kind of protected a little bit, albeit the hourly rate might be lower, but when you kind of compared it to our sort of retainer rates, they weren't too different, it's just the model's different. But yeah, over time we would naturally try and harmonise that so that the end client was aligned. Most of that will have happened by now over the years, but yeah, it depends on the client really and the service you provide. But I think broadly, if you look across all the other independents out there, they're probably all charging a very similar rate these days. I think most people have sensible pricing now. Unless you're working from your back bedroom where your overheads are low, and sometimes when you start out, you think you're going to win a load of business and charge lower, but once you get busy, you realise that rate's not sustainable. So I think that naturally brings people to a kind of fairly even rate.
So I guess like ultimately like. Yeah, because I sometimes think about mergers as well, and I've had people come to me and offer to sell me their practice, especially if they're retiring or something. Yeah. And as you mentioned, like you're not the cheapest, but you're not the most expensive, and I think that's an area where we sit at, because in the end of the day, you probably got a good team, and you've got to retain that good team. And one of the ways to retain the good team is just pay them like a fair salary based on what the market's doing. But that means you've got to go charge the clients enough, and I think. Helping them understand that. But do you feel like at the moment that in terms of pricing pressure and margins, do you feel this is probably one of the most challenging times you've been through, especially with the cost of living, or have you got ways to deal with that?
So I think there's a number of ways to answer that, but I think we are still winning new business, but it's slowed down. We're soul searching at the moment, to be honest, as to whether that's a pricing issue, a pricing challenge. We've always tried to minimise price increases to our clients by being more efficient. So that's always our first route. But there comes a point where all my staff want pay rises, so you're naturally going to have to bridge that by increasing the fees to clients as well. We kind of have a lot of bolt-on services, as you mentioned. So we have this unlimited retainer in terms of ICE, but then we do additional things around recruitment and on-site project work. So that's typically what sort of uplifts some of the fees we bill out. But yeah, I think time will tell on pricing for us. We need to make sure we're hitting the mark with the clients. One of the things we did do about a year and a half ago was previously we just had one kind of flavour in terms of our retainer rate is based typically on employee numbers, but it was one service. So about a year and a half ago, we introduced a 3-tiered service essentially. So if price was a challenge at the top end, we had a kind of light version, which kind of took out some of the bells and whistles of the top tier service.
Do you find that's worked well?
It certainly helps with the conversation if a client's talking to you about price being a challenge. Well, you said you wanted this level of service, that's this one. If price is the issue, then maybe this one's better. To be honest, we probably sell very few of the light ones because then it almost helps justify the price position of the top tier service. So we kind of find that actually it's more of a sales tool to help still get the service we were getting or winning. I'm
sorry to interrupt, but it's because I follow someone on YouTube called James Ashford. So he's the guy that created Go Proposal. So it's like a bit of proposal software a lot of accountants use. Okay. And he's always made an argument against having like a multi-tiered price structure. But I know loads of people made an argument for it, like, the whole good, better, best thing. But James Ashford always compares it to like a surgeon doing an operation. And And he says, well, if a surgeon came to you and said, look, on the basic package, like you get 6 sutures, on the advanced one you get 20.
Yeah.
On the basic one, we'll just do a quick check to make sure we haven't left anything on you. On the advanced, you do a thorough check.
Yeah.
The basic, you get 24 hours recovery time. You know where I'm going.
Yeah.
But ultimately, he's always said, like, if you believe there's only one solution for your customers, why offer them anything else?
Yeah.
And for a while, I did stick. I did stick to that, and I kind of did believe it. But then over time, I've kind of unraveled on it a bit. I do see the benefit of good, better, best, in the sense that I think it allows you to make relationships with people at an earlier stage in their business, and that can be quite important, because those businesses at an earlier stage can then turn into something amazing, and you've still got that relationship which you can then upgrade.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. You can get both sides of the coin on that discussion point, but for us, HR, the advice is still the same. Our tiered service is more around you get a same person or you get multiple people. So the kind of top tier service is where we're just a bit more embedded in that client, and some of our clients are a bit more forward thinking and strategic and want that level of service, and others just want to know they're not going to go to jail for dismissing somebody. So any member of my team could do that level of service, and that client might not care that it's the same person giving them the same advice. And that's kind of where our the price points come in. Really, it's more about speaking to one person or many people is broadly the difference. But they still get the same advice, just not from the same person.
What's so a lot of small businesses, and by the way, that makes a lot of sense, definitely. A lot of small businesses, they kind of overlook HR, especially at the beginning, because they're just winging it, really, aren't they? And what would you say is the worst horror story you've seen, like when that's happened, when someone's just overlooked the need for HR in their business?
I can always remember a story where I kind of have many hats, as I'm sure you do, in terms of business. But I was doing the sales role on this day. A client went to see a client in textile industry, and they had 10 employees, and I asked them, well, what's your people challenges? And they didn't have any, apparently. And as soon as they signed up, they had 10 people challenges, and it was like every one of their staff needed something. And that's broadly because they'd left everything alone. And I think once you start focusing on something, you realise, that's not right. And I think as a small business owner, sometimes you're just so focused on what's next that you don't always tidy the edges with staff. Like, you might give a pay rise, but you haven't sent the letter, or you've said, I'll give you a bonus, but you haven't defined what the detail of that bonus is, or how you achieve it or don't achieve it. And I think small business owners do it all well intentionally, but sometimes you just need to top and tail the sort of admin that goes behind it. So we had some horror stories around that, when obviously there's just some kind of break fix kind of scenarios where you need to go in and put some fires out. Other times we've got involved with small businesses where like mine, there's family involved, and you've got to try and mediate sometimes in terms of your family members who work together don't always get on, so there's some challenges around that. But I think that just the general nature of what we do, there's always a horror story with an employee in terms of grievances or disciplinaries, but obviously I can't disclose all the details.
No, absolutely not.
It's an interesting sort of world to be in HR. You kind of see a bit of everything.
I guess, I think from what I've identified talking to HR people in general in the past, is there's kind of 3 elements of what they do. They do the firefighting, where someone's taking them to tribunal. They do the compliance, which is just getting all the contracts and everything in place, and the paperwork. But then the strategic stuff, and I think a lot of small business owners never get past the first 2, so they never really think about the strategic stuff. Yeah. Why is that important, and what does it look like?
So our team essentially do all those 3 things. So we actually embedded a 90-day plan into our sort of top tier service, where we go, right, the first 30 days is break fix, and then we do a bit more of a deep dive of what's going on, and then we look sort of within the last 30 days of the 90-day plan, we ask the business where they're going and then we put mechanisms in place to support them. That's where we can start to have those conversations about how we can add value to them and help them realize that it's not all about hiring and firing. The reason why it's important though is, retaining your staff in this current climate is absolutely key. There's definitely a looming crisis where people are switching jobs, and that is pushing up wage prices. I think there was in the news this week that pay inflation is outstripping normal inflation, because people are switching jobs and people are short staffed, so they're offering higher salaries to bring these people in. So keeping your staff key is important, and that's where, if you think about the HR strategy, people don't just come to work for money, they come to work for the culture, the environment, and all the additional benefits that go with that. So we help clients with their kind of employee proposition, to sort of stand out from the crowd, to attract people, but also build that culture to retain people. But also, if you've got an engaged team, they're all working for you rather than just seeing it as a job. It's, you're all on the same team and working in the same direction. Some of the other more strategic stuff we get involved with is helping people maybe get ready for a 2P exercise if they're getting acquired. So we can actually, when you're buying a business, it's not all about what that business is turning over. You're buying that team as well. So a lot of investors will look at the detail of that, and we kind of help streamline those processes. So you've got evidence of job descriptions being in place, the pay structures make sense, and all the kind of remuneration benefits that go with it all make sense, and you've got training in place that kind of locks some people in. If you put someone on a training course, we kind of pay for that, but then we expect them to stay with us for a number of years. All that is good practice that as a small business owner, you would do, but you don't necessarily think about the kind of what else should I be doing with it. So you might not have thought about a training agreement. You might not have thought about documenting that you're willing to give them 5 days study leave or whatever. So, but those things are important when you come to sell your business, because under due diligence, people will ask you those questions. So that's kind of where we help some of our clients as well in terms of the strategic aspect of what we do. Okay, all right, that makes a huge amount of sense. So, I mean, Greg, you seem incredibly confident at the moment in terms of, and you've achieved so much in your business. Were you always like that, or is that just from years of experience? So I don't see myself like that. I know there's a job to do and just get on and do it. I think I am ambitious in that, I always want to do a good job, and I always want to help as many people as we can. I think the reason why we've been successful is we knew we had a good product and service, and we could replicate that with the people we hired. I am motivated, but it's more about the recognition rather than money, if that makes sense. I like to know that we've done a good job and get recognised for that. I think I'm at heart a problem solver. So when you go into a business and you can see that there's obvious opportunity to change things, then that's what I do. And the benefit of that is, yes, the business grows and processes improve, but at heart, I'm probably a problem solver rather than overly ambitious, if that makes sense. But I guess by being a problem solver, you're delivering a really good level of service, and then people recommend you, I guess, and stay longer. It improves your client retention. Yeah. So, I mean, actually, that was something I wanted to. One of the problems might be, improving our price proposition. It's not resonating in the market, or you're not making money. That's the problem that needs to overcome. You can't run a business if you're losing money. So that when I say problems, it's all aspects of the business that I would focus on. Improve marketing, improve our financial processes. They're all just things that make sense, I guess. My background is HR. I've never studied finance or business. I know you mentioned you're watching some YouTube stuff and videos, of listening more to podcasts and audiobooks at the moment on long car journeys. But that just kind of keeps your mind fresh. I think at heart, I'm a problem solver, and everything they're saying is really just reinforcing what you're doing rather than necessarily giving you new ideas, if that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
One thing you're touching upon, which is kind of relevant to our business, is when you're the technician, you start off as a technician and you do a particular role in a business, and like accounting, for example, and you do it well, and then you get people in to do that well, and eventually you build up like an infrastructure where those people you got in can train more people, and then eventually you look to other departments in your business and you want to do those well, so you get functions like marketing and admin, and I think it's just that culture of doing things well flows into other areas of your business, and that's where it scales really. Is there, I mean, why I mean, you mentioned that you want to help more people, so is that what makes you want to grow the business? Because you could easily have, when you had 200 clients, for example, you probably could have just said, hey, that's enough. Like, you know, I've got good work-life balance. Like, do you have kids at the moment?
Yeah, I've got 3 kids, so that is a driving force in terms of, you know, we need to pay the bills, and one has gone to uni, so, you know, it's gets expensive. My driving force is like, we want to grow. Like, you know, I think any business owner, I think, would say they want to be bigger, and it's just, some people just got it instilled into them that that's what they need to do, and that might be for you know, lifestyle or whatever. Yeah, we obviously had shareholders behind us when we were doing M&A, and they do drive you to make more money and be profitable. But you know, that's the challenge that you kind of set and have to solve. I think for me, you know, we did sell out last year, but that was largely, we got to a size that made sense. You know, looking back, we were probably always going to do it at some point, but we were probably, I think for me, it was maybe 2 years too early in terms of where we thought we could get to on our own. But now we're part of something bigger, and for me, my role's expanded in the new world. And again, it's, you know, there's a challenge in front of me that needs a bit of problem solving, and that's kind of what I've moved into now. Is rather than growing a business, that's probably fixing up a business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And when you get to 45 members of staff, or however many you mentioned, I'm assuming you need a good management team in place.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, back in 2015 we merged, so that business came with some managers in that business as well. So weirdly, that business had been going about the similar time. So sort of one of my number twos been with the business 20 years in total, when you kind of look at the history pre-merger.
And how many of them do you have? Like, how many senior managers do you have in your business?
So I've got 5 senior managers reporting direct to me. You know, that's across service delivery, marketing, business development, finance. So yeah, I mean, I kind of in the beginning, I was doing all of those jobs. So I kind of know a little bit about most of them, but not a lot about everything. So bringing in a management team helps, but the service delivery manager has always really been there. And that's obviously the biggest part of what we do. So, you know, whilst my background's HR, all the team below me are much cleverer than I am in terms of delivering that support. And that's where the kind of manager comes in terms of helping support them, you know, dealing with any tricky questions, that kind of stuff, which, you know, I would probably struggle to answer some of them these days because of the way the world's moved on. So I do spend my time more on the overall growth of the business, rather than specific functions, or where I might give some ideas and different aspects of it, but I don't do any of it, if that makes sense. But I think to enable you to focus on the business, you need managers that can do some of that work, and it's a luxury that I've got as a small business. You don't always have that luxury, so you might want to pull in, you know, an outsourced service like accounting or HR, for example, to help you with those bits that are not naturally your skill set. But as you grow, you might bring some of that back in house, which is sort of what we did.
I think the real mystery to me, or maybe not quite mystery. I do kind of understand how it works. Is like business development and generating that function within a business.
Yeah.
I think over the years I've gradually come to understand the difference between like telemarketing and business development, or business development executives and business development managers.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind sharing, how big is your business development team?
So at our peak there was four in the business development team, so two in marketing, two in sales. At the moment there's three though, because we're backfilling a role at the moment.
Okay, and I'm assuming it's their job to convert prospects into clients.
Yeah, it's a bit of so our focus is more around SEO. Partly HR is a little bit of a distressed purchase. You don't know you need it till you've got a problem. So yes, we might get lucky by calling someone the exact same day they realise they need HR, but in most circumstances you're probably going to go to Google, I've got a HR problem, how do I solve it, or HR outsourcing, or whatever it might be, and that's where we sit. We would typically be page one of Google because of the work we've done on our website. That then generates a lead.
Is that page one nationally or locally? Or?
It will depend on the exact keyword that you put in and sort of where you're based, but in sort of most of the time, the southern half of England, we would be page one on some sort of HR term.
And do you do all your SEO in-house?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We have used agencies over the past, and this isn't trying to discredit any of those, but we kind of just felt that it is a bit of a dark art, but once you get under the bonnet of it, there's the tools that an agency use you can sort of get yourself, and we have used them before where we've had a big piece of project work to do where we just wouldn't get to it on our own, and that's like tidying up the website, making it work quicker. But I think you know your business, you know what a good keyword is, and you know if you write that article, what that article should be found for. And I think this isn't everybody, but some agencies will give you an article that is good for a blog, but not necessarily good for SEO. And so you kind of just need to think about how you pull it all together. So that's how we do our marketing is being visible when someone's got a problem. We do sponsor awards and we do win awards. We've got many here. But there's a bit of brand awareness that we do, so that, if you did have a people problem, hopefully you go, oh, I remember that Pink Square HR Solutions, I'll contact them. Or you might go onto Google and then hopefully you'd find us there. That's kind of our front end lead generation tool. Yeah.
How do you build your links, for example? Like, do you just use? PR agencies are quite good for building links, aren't they?
Yeah. So we use Ballyhoo, local to us. They help us with PR, and so we will typically write an article on our website, but they might help us get coverage in different aspects. They even got me on ITV News once.
Oh, amazing!
I think, but some of that's just brand awareness. The SEO for us is really the keywords that are native on your website, and yes, there is some backlinks that help boost that. But we're in a fortunate position. We get about 20,000 people visit our website every month, which is pretty significant. But some of that is students, looking for free stuff. Kind of a bit of a believer in givers gain, so there is a lot of free tools on our website. But obviously there's we want to do some capturing of that, so it's free, but you just need to give us your name and email address, and then if you're a student, you're not going to get a call from us. But if you're a business, then you might get added to a marketing list where we'll keep talking about what we do, and then over a couple of emails you realise how good our content is and therefore how good our service must be, and that's when the traction starts to engage. So our website's got a lot of free content with the aim that if you're buying from somebody, you want to know how good they are, and therefore the content on our website sort of demonstrates that before you even speak to anybody, in terms of the advice we give and the free content, and that might be a free download or a guide to follow or something like that. once that comes in, it's a much easier journey for the salesperson to talk to someone who told you, "Oh, I want to find out more about your service," than phoning someone up and going, do you know what HR is and what it can do for your business? So our sales process is a bit easier because they're all warm leads basically.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And how big is your marketing team now?
So at the moment I've got one, because one we're backfilling one role.
Okay, excellent. And it's like, in terms of hiring like a salesperson or a BDM, although I do know salespeople and BDMs are very different things. Like, was it? Because when I think about it, like, one of the roles, if I could hire it right now, which I am looking into, but I just haven't pulled the trigger on yet, is if I just hired someone to manage a lead, like, and continuously, like, we've got marketing people in our business, and they're really busy doing various bits of marketing, whereas one person who can just focus on managing lead and doesn't have anything else to worry about. Was it a big relief for you when you finally hired your first business development person?
Yeah, in short, yeah. I mean, I kind of, I know I've said it a couple of times, my background's HR, but I actually really like the business development side of what we do, because I like talking to prospects and finding out about them and their business. And I think, I've kind of trained the salespeople in terms of what I've done in the past. And I think, I'm not saying I'm the best business development person in the world, but we take the time to find out about our client. And I think, I can't do them all up myself. So hopefully, replicating the conversations and style that I would have had with a prospect, the sales team have developed into that as well now. There's two of them in the team now. And I do get involved every now and again, so maybe I'm the third. With sales, they are typically the first point of contact for the prospect, and therefore they are the first person to represent you and your brand. So that is quite a key role. That I always see that as somebody who needs to live and breathe us, to be honest, because if the salesperson doesn't represent us properly, then we're not going to get that conversion, or when they meet the rest of the team, they will see a different side of how we work. So we kind of want everybody along the journey to sort of be fairly consistent in how we talk and approach the client's requirements. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest frustrations for me over the years is probably just like the number of leads we've kind of wasted. Where, I mean, when you first make contact with someone, or they make contact with you, you go through a certain process. But like, from talking to a lot of people who've got salespeople and BDMs in their business, like, sometimes, like, I think someone gave me a stat, like 50% of the sales happen between the 5th and the 12th contact. Something along those lines, where from what I've seen, most businesses don't get past like the 3rd contact.
Yeah.
And like, do you find that in your business, just the continuous following up until you get a no, essentially, I guess?
Yeah, so we use a CRM as well, so we kind of can track and monitor those leads better, which I'd encourage anybody to do, because it will make your life easier. And it does depend on the client requirement. Obviously, if it's a bit of a distress, they need it now, then they're going to buy now. But we're in a sort of marketplace where there's lots of alternatives. So if you don't follow up, somebody else will talk to that client, or they might have Googled HR consultancy and emailed the top 5 people. So we kind of, sometimes it'll just be us in the running, and other times we know we're competing against other people, and that might be the bigger players out there, or somebody who's working from home. So our service needs to sit in the middle and address the fact that we are personable, flexible, that you would expect from somebody who works from home, but sort of big enough and professional enough to deal with the more complicated things that you might expect from the larger players. And that's kind of how we kind of express ourselves throughout that whole process. And I can bore you to death in terms of what we do in marketing, because it's a big passion of mine. But we do competitive analysis. You need to do that to understand what you're up against, and you learn from that journey. And it might be pricing, or it might be how they express the service. When we introduced that sort of 3-tier service, it was a result of that benchmarking and competitor analysis in terms of other people were doing it, and also, if a client we were losing someone from price, they needed to be making sure they were comparing apples and apples rather than apples and pears. So that's sort of how we evolved our pitch deck through learning. We knew we don't know everything. So, that's kind of we've done a bit of soul searching over the years, and you always learn from those types of things. And then you just evolve. I guess it's a bit competitive. You kind of want to be better than your counterparts.
So I was watching this. It was a podcast episode on YouTube that Patrick Bet-David did. He's got his own channel, Valuetainment. So I don't know if you come across him, but he's this insurance mogul in the States, and he started off just selling life insurance, and then he's got I think 10,000 people that work for him now. So he's got his own business channel called Valuetainment, and it was really good because he did a whole episode on why businesses should be looking forward to a recession,
right,
or to coming in a recession. I know it's a very sensitive topic for a lot of people, so I don't agree or disagree with that, but he did this one section on how, and it's kind of covering what we spoke about earlier in the podcast, but he did this one session on how recruitment's a bubble at the moment. People keep on moving jobs just for that pay rise, and they don't stay anywhere for any period of time. But he was essentially saying, well, you know what, at some point the market's going to contract, there's going to be less jobs, and then or the people that kept on moving and don't have a consistent work history on their CV and end up with a salary that's way over and above their actual what their actual level of experience could normally command. They're going to be in a very dangerous position, essentially. Do you kind of agree with that view?
To a degree, yeah. I think there will come a point where you might see some salary contraction, and then if you're in a job you don't like, you're going to struggle to move because you've got used to that new salary level. We've as a business, we've seen salary creep, as everybody else. But we try to make that relevant, and we, being open, we tend to look at a total package rather than just a base salary. So reward for performance as well as like a base salary, because then we're rewarding the right behaviours. We want people to, whether it's sales or whatever. But I think if you're inflating basics, yes, people are going to jump, and you're going to have somebody in that role for a while. But if they're tempted by money, then they'll do it again, and you might not have them for very long. But that individual, I think, whatever time it will be, but they will find at some point in time that they stuck in a role that they might not like, because nobody is willing to pay them what they're on now for a role that's broadly doing the same thing.
Or potentially, if their role isn't good value for the business they're in, they could end up being made redundant, essentially, and they might be the first in line for that. But I kind of, talking to a lot of people, I just get the feeling we are in a bubble. With recruitment.
As a manager who hires people, we want everybody in our team to add value, and if that, as an individual, if you're in a business that's not adding value, then that business is naturally going to question, why do I need you? Why can't someone else take part of that role? Or do I split it into two juniors? You don't want a high-paid salesperson doing admin. You want them to be selling, high-value deals. And if a market contracts and the leads are not there, that's naturally what would happen. So, if that bubble does burst, then I do think there will be some people who unfortunately will probably be in difficult situations. But sometimes with situations like that, people will spin out, go on their own, create a new business. So they might not. It's not going to be everybody in the situation. Some people will use that as an opportunity, and other people might be stuck. I think, firm believer, you make your own luck, and you kind of master of your own destiny. So if you do find people in a situation that they're going to get made redundant, then some people will thrive on that and other people won't. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think one of the biggest challenges at the moment is also when you're recruiting new roles and salaries have moved a lot, you've got to, it's about just being consistent as well, because I've seen businesses where just bringing someone in with whatever the market's telling you to pay them, regardless of what level they're at, it can create a lot of toxicity within a team and a business. So
yeah, we've not quite got to a position where we've got pay bands as such, whereas we might at some point if we get bigger. But you're absolutely right. If I brought somebody doing in the same job as another member of my team or more, there's going to be an element of resentment out there. Equally, the roles we've kind of paid that because it's baked into our model in terms of our profitability and how we service clients. So, jumping pay bands or basic salaries is going to mean we have to put up prices to clients, and so it is a fine balance because you need the skill set, but we kind of almost would go down a tier and recruit a more junior member of staff that we could develop, to be honest.
Yeah, you know what? One of the beauties of a lot of the software and a lot of the technology we use at the moment is they come with their own learning resources. Yeah. So quite often I find as long as you get people the right attitude with the right work ethic, they can pretty much learn anything they need to.
Yeah.
And if not through the learning resources from that bit of software off YouTube, YouTube's like the best university I've ever come across.
Yeah.
But that's definitely something to consider. I do. A lot of the time when I'm talking to recruitment consultants, and it's easy for them to say something like, "Oh, it's only an extra $3,000 for this level of person," but actually, that level of person, their level is unverified at that point.
Yeah.
Really, you're only going by their word on it. But ultimately, it's never only another $3,000 for that level of person. It's everyone else you've got to pay in your business to keep them aligned to that level.
Yeah, and the extra percentage you got to pay the recruitment consultant as well. I think for me, it's on the individual, the recruiter, to make sure you've gone through that robust process as well. So convince yourself they're worth it, with, maybe not just 10 questions, ask them to do a presentation or, deep dive into their experience a bit more. If you hire the wrong person, you can't really blame the recruitment consultant, can you? You made that decision. Yes, they might have helped inflate the package, but if they're the right person, they probably are worth paying for. But if they're in a standalone role, there'll always be the challenge if you're bringing someone in to do the same job as someone else. It's always going to cause resentment, but you're also potentially exposing yourself to sort of discrimination claims if there's different sexes kicking around as well. So there's no one fix, unfortunately, but for me personally, I would almost go down a level and then train up. Like I think with the tools you mentioned, if someone's willing, you can bring a junior up quicker than to do that kind of role, then maybe hire someone straight into a level that wants more money. I personally like seeing people progress with their career as well, and then they kind of, if they start with you on a lower salary and grow with your business, they are grateful.
And quite often they're aligned with your culture as well.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to get people who've started early on in your business to get aligned, but I mean that actually, sometimes you can find people that are already aligned as well. That definitely as well.
Yeah, personally, we're not unique. Like that, we've had some recruitment challenges over the years, and some people we think are the best fit for us and stay a month because the role's not quite for them. And that's more the kind of moving from an in-house role to a kind of consultancy-based model, not us, just to clarify.
Yeah.
It's just the role's not right for them. But, we try to make sure that everyone understands that role during the recruitment process, because it's a waste of everybody's time, unfortunately. But, we've had some sort of experiences that, we don't really want to repeat. But you kind of learn from it. Sometimes you've got to make a mistake to learn, and that's sort of what we've been doing over the last couple of years around recruitment and making sure that our messaging is right, people understand the role, I think in COVID, when you're doing telephone interviews and appointing sort of without even seeing somebody, I wouldn't ever encourage someone to do that again. Like we kind of thought we were doing the right thing, and then they've not really bought into your culture because they've not been in the office and seen how everybody is or understood the role in a lot of detail. So we kind of build in some scenario-based experiences so that they, as part of the interview process, they actually can understand what a client might ask them, or how on any given day you might have 5 clients asking you different questions, and you kind of got to manage that and try and make sure people don't come in with anything they shouldn't already know.
Yeah, I mean, that's really insightful. And what's your view on remote working and flexible working and all of that kind of stuff? Does that pose a lot more challenges these days?
For us, we embraced it. So the business we merged with, they didn't have an office. So, that was back in 2015.
Okay.
So we had an office in sort of the core business, but so we've always had an element of home workers in our business. So we kind of, when COVID happened, it wasn't a new thing for us.
Is it challenging getting productivity out of them, or do you find it works well?
Because of the nature of what we do, a consultant would typically look after a book of business for us, so there isn't really anywhere to hide. If we started getting customer complaints, then it's on the consultant. So there isn't. They kind of, it sounds bad, but like they don't really have anywhere to hide to not be productive, because there's a client phoning them or emailing them asking for advice. I think, with a modern workplace, there's technology that if you weren't convinced somebody was working, you could check. We don't need to do that. We're confident everyone is, got a role and everyone is playing their part. You could go looking if you wanted to. We're on a Microsoft suite. There's lots of tools around, but I think it goes back to hiring the right person as well, making sure they've got that ethos. Our kind of culture is around rewarding people for contribution, and that naturally brings out the right behaviours for us.
Okay, excellent. Okay, perfect. I don't really have many more questions, but apart from maybe these last 2, so I did say that 2 questions ago, but it's but I'll keep them brief. Like you mentioned, you listen to podcasts in the car, and are there any like particular influencers or people that you listen to that are really inspiring for you?
So I mean, I've read Simon Sinek and watched quite a few of his videos. Okay. I think one of the ones I'm sure you heard of is Start With Why, and I think any small business owner should consider that, because if you get your why right, then it will naturally be easier for you to sell your business, because you're just sort of saying why you went into business to do that, and people buy into that rather than like, how do I make this business successful? You could have all the kind of fancy sales and marketing processes in the world, but if your product isn't good, then you're going to struggle to sell it. So I think he's probably the one I've been spending the most time on. A couple of his books I've been reading, and when I'm in the car, kind of trying to catch up on and listening to it at the same time. Yeah,
I really like the video he did on why great leaders make you feel safe.
Yeah,
and also. The only book by Simon Sinek I've actually ever listened to, though, was called The Infinite Game. Yeah. And I think that's a really good one, because that's really relevant to scaling a business and building a business that runs without you. But it's not just building a business that runs without you. It's about building a business that will endure hundreds of years without you. So that's quite an interesting one. So that's definitely really good. And do you have any like mentors, or like do you have any like business coaches that you work with?
No, not as such. Obviously, the kind of shareholders I had before were kind of all, I guess, been there, done it kind of people. So I kind of learnt a lot from them in terms of how they would structure and run a business, and their background's more financial. So I kind of learnt more about that side of the business from them. I kind of went to some coaching networking events and stuff like that, but never had a coach, if that makes sense. But I'm a big fan of personal development, so particularly when I kind of merged with that other business, our board meetings pre that were Sunday lunches with my mum. So my style had to change, so I kind of became a governor at Tresham College, and then Bedford College sort of acquired them. and that was for me to be the other side of the table, to understand, what I would want to see in a board pack, and the kind of information that they would find useful. And I think putting yourself in somebody else's shoes is the way I learn and kind of empathize with them, and that's how I kind of changed my style with my shareholders on the back of that. But that was kind of me knowing that was where I lacked skills, and I kind of did the governor roles to address that. But I think if anyone soul searched, you could understand where your weaknesses are. I just knew that was mine, and overcome it. I think there's a place for a coach in everyone's life. You kind of need to know what you want to be coached on, I think, sometimes, rather than somebody will just tell you how to improve your finances, somebody will tell you how to improve your home life balance, or whatever it might be. But I think if you're going to have a coach, you kind of need to know what you want from that coach as well. Quite often they'll hold you accountable, but you kind of need to know that you're getting what you want out of it as well.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, really, finally, if you were starting out all over again, or if you were meeting someone who was starting out all over again, what advice would you give them?
I think it's a difficult one. If I was to do it again, I think you kind of start with that why. Why are you doing it? What is the kind of product you have or service that you have, and start from there. I would have a plan. Obviously, write down what you want to achieve. I think I can't remember who says it, but if you write something down, it's more likely to happen. So even if you had top 10 things you want to achieve, just writing them down, you might achieve 8 of them. So that, in that business world, that might be, a 10-point slide deck that you want to achieve, or a business plan, or whatever it is. I think, as a very small business, I think you've got to start with the basics and understand where your strengths are, and where you've got gaps, pulling outsourced partners to help you fill those gaps, particularly if you're doing it on your own. Most businesses won't be fortunate enough to be able to start again and have a 10-man team straight away. So you need to kind of build up to that by outsourcing different services. But yeah, I think I encourage anyone to give it a go. I certainly enjoyed my time doing it. Okay,
that's absolutely amazing. And Greg, if anyone watching this wants to get hold of you, what's the best way?
So I'd contact us on our website. It's probably the best way. So hrsolutions-uk.com. I'm on LinkedIn. You could probably just type Greg Guilford and you'll be able to find me and reach out to me in there as well.
Okay, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. So everyone, you've been watching the Unrelenting Drive podcast. Stay tuned for future episodes, and I'll see you soon.